Mountain biking can sometimes feel like a bit of a fashion show. People could and do make the accusation that this iterative design process is more about servicing the needs of the industry machine more than it is about servicing the needs of the end user. Now, while I would contend that there are really passionate people working in the industry trying to make their best bikes possible, it's not to say that sometimes it doesn't all feel a bit superficial. Now, here on the left, we have a chap. Let's call him Sam. Now, whatever Sam does, this chap over here, let's call him Simon, wants to show that he can do it just as well. These two are involved in something of a fight to the death, and this adversarial relationship is all about keeping up and outdoing each other. The thing is, in this last year, Sam has been getting all of the attention. They've got the trendy shoes, which definitely aren't rotten. They've got the big baggy hipster jacket that makes it look like they and 3 generations of their family have survived some kind of nuclear Armageddon, and a big gold watch that definitely isn't a knockoff from duty free. In this season's colours, Shimano over here has been outmaneuvered, outgunned, and let's face it, compared to the glitz and glamour of Sam, is looking a little bit tired. But for all of Sam's bling and excitement, Shimano over here might have delivered the thing that you actually end up riding. And it's the thing that I've spent the better part of a year on. It's not the flashiest, the blingiest, most exciting development in mountain biking history, but it could prove to be very important. The thing I'm talking about is the Shimano Linkglide XT drivetrain, or is that transmission? No, it's definitely a drivetrain. To understand and appreciate Linkglide, you have to look at where they've put the tech. Now, normally that means we look at the derailleur, but this isn't electric, although admittedly there is an electronic Di2 version for e-bikes, but this is just a pretty standard affair, a mechanical derailleur with a simple cable operation. So if all the technology isn't in the rear mech, where is it then? Well, I'm going to start with a comment which might be perceived as counter the narrative, or dare I say it, controversial, which of course it isn't. And that is simply that a cassette should last the lifespan of your bike. If you owned a car and the transmission did 1/5 of the miles as everything else, well, that would be kind of daft. And if our cassettes aren't durable because they're pursuing low weight, well, that might be okay for racing. But for everyone else, to me, it just seems thoroughly inappropriate. Just like carbon fiber and alloys definitely have their place and are better suited towards some tasks than others, steel has its place too. Now, maybe not for our stems or our handlebars or our rims, but if you want something tough and durable, and we don't mind it being a bit heavier, then steel can be a really, really great option. And we need to really understand and embrace this to understand why Linkglide could be a really good solution to the modern enduro drivetrain. So when it comes to weight, how much is this heavy steel cassette actually setting you back? That is 624 grams, which isn't a huge amount. And compared to the Hyperglide Plus 12-speed option, this is about 470. So it's a fair bit heavier, but I mean, in the context of our bikes, to me, it doesn't seem like it's the end of the world. So the cassette really is the star of the show. Not the chain or the shifter or the mech, but all the novel technology that makes Linkglide what it is really is crammed into here. Now, Shimano claim that this cassette offers 300% of the durability compared to a Hyperglide Plus one. Now, I can't verify that. Quite simply, I've got a job and a life and a budding Counter-Strike career to think of, and I simply don't have the time to put that many miles on my bike. However, in the year or so I've had this on, I have to say it has been very good. But what I can tell you is that it's an 11-speed cassette that does without the smaller cogs that you might find on something like the Hyperglide Plus or options from SRAM, which go down to a 10-tooth. And obviously some manufacturers are even going down to the smallest cog being a 9-tooth. There are some valid reasons why Shimano haven't done this. Mainly, I imagine, it is around the free hub body. Going down to just an 11-tooth means that you don't have to go away from that more traditional HD style body. And that plays into the bigger reason. Linkglide is part of the Q's family. Now, Q's is a terrible name, let's face it, but the technology in there is really, really good. And it's all about simplifying entry-level drivetrains that not only work better together and provide a greater level of interchangeability, but they also mean that bike shops can streamline their stock, meaning they have to carry less parts and increasing the likelihood of when you do need something, they're gonna have it and be able to make it work. Linkglide XT sits atop of that Q's family with this all singing, all dancing 11-speed version. But right through that family, it's all done on 11-speed spacing. That means that you could run a 9-speed Q's shifter with an 11-speed cassette. You could run a 9-speed cassette with an 11-speed shifter, and obviously these sort of bodges would need a bit of thinking outside the box in terms of limit screws or maybe pulling 2 clicks through the shifter before installing the cable. But it really is a good thing for normal mountain bikers, especially those on the entry-level side, because they're going to have better solutions, more technology, and hopefully better availability. The shifting on this Linkglide XT system is very good, but how does it compare to Hyperglide Plus? Well, Shimano will admit straight off the bat that it's not as quick, but how that intersects with your experience really depends on you as a rider, and I'll explain that in a moment. But Shimano do say that this is their smoothest shift ever. So, the Linkglide is 300% as smooth. They do this getting that magical number by the profile and shaping of the teeth. These teeth are taller, thicker at the base, and I imagine this means they can be a little bit stiffer. However, they do so with less shifting ramps. Now that is where it means, these potentially slightly slower shift comes into play compared to Hyperglide Plus. But that really depends how you shift. So if you've got quite a high cadence, you're probably going to notice it less than somebody who has a slower one. For me, I spin at like 1,000,000 RPM. So I don't really think it's a slow shift at all. I actually think it's pretty good. It's maybe not as snappy as Hyperglide Plus, but really, once you get riding, it's something that really blends into the bike and you don't notice very much. So it's a smoother shift, it's more durable, and you can treat it like crap 300% more of the time or something. Now you might notice that slower shift, and if you do, you're more likely to notice it as you go into the smaller cogs or bigger gears, at least in my experience. It is very minimal though, and like I said, it's maybe like a split second in it, and you don't really notice it out in the real world, at least to my mind. But let's go out on the trail, treat this absolutely abhorrently, and see if we can get it to make some horrible noises. So the shifting then is very good. I don't know, about 300% smoother, maybe more 296.7, but it's there or thereabouts. It's a very well-performing drivetrain. To kind of test, I suppose, that cassette, I actually tried a few different chains on it. So I initially rode it with the XT spec chain. I went all the way down to the cheapest Shimano chain I could find in a deal, and the shifting was still excellent. I even put an 11-speed KMC chain on, which Shimano say will work, although however isn't optimized for the system, and again, the shifting was very good. To fully appreciate why Shimano went to this thicker tooth profile with Linkglide, it's worth considering their full breadth of reasoning. So yes, it's longevity, yes, it's smoothness, but it's also to try and remove a degree of shock, as they refer to it. This is what you feel through your feet as you really feel like you punch into that new gear. Now, this is where people's experiences may well differ, because a more seasoned rider will be more in tune with unweighting as they go into a new gear, so they might not necessarily benefit so much from the removal of the thing they didn't feel anyway. But for those less experienced riders, or people that shift with no mechanical sympathy whatsoever, in the same way you might try and do open heart surgery with a sledgehammer, they're really, really, really gonna get the benefit. So, is Linkglide a worthy counterpunch to SRAM's T-type drivetrain? Honestly, I kind of think so. I mean, is SRAM's T-type fantastic? Yes. Is it elegant? Absolutely. Is it a genuinely fantastically well-rounded product? Absolutely. It really is great.
Would I buy it? With real money? All of that real money? Honestly, I'd find it hard to justify. I think something like this is much more likely going to stay on my bike. If I was in a bike shop buying a group set tomorrow, what would it be? Honestly, it would probably be Linkglide. Is it as refined as Hyperglide Plus? No. Does it do without some of the niceties like that double upshift in the same stroke? Yes, it does. And it's of course heavier. But for me and what I ride, I think it's great. In fact, sorry, my brakes are squealing 300% more because of the rain. But in fact, if Shimano or even Shimano really wanted to take the fight to SRAM, I would say a good place to start would be having this 11-speed Linkglide with all that durability in a Di2 version. Currently it is available, but only on e-bikes. Now I've ridden that system and it is very good, and you can treat your drivetrain so badly and the shift is still very, very good. And it's only speculation on my part, but I wonder if some of the tech in this 11-speed Linkglide is going to appear in the next version of what Saint is. Now it's been 10 years since we had the last Shimano Saint sort of revision in its drivetrains, and it's kind of overdue. I think a lot of these features would be right at home there. It's worth thinking about descending as well, because I've done loads of this drivetrain and that mech has stood up really well, both in terms of the tautness of the bushes as well as the clutch. Like I said, you can adjust the clutch, but I haven't needed to, and I've ridden a shit ton of bike park and I've been really, really impressed. So is this the group set that I would buy? Probably. Is it going to stay on my bike? Absolutely. I don't really miss the 10 tooth. I find it perfectly adequate for my riding, and the shifting is very good. As always, for the full written review, please check out the Pinkbike homepage, as well as all the price breakdown and tech specs. But if you can't be bothered to do that, well, that's a good thing too, because that is your lot. I am now going to go get the kettle on and get back to some Counter-Strike and get shouted at by these 13-year-olds that are so mean to me just because I'm not as good as them.